Hey YouTubers, welcome back. Today I'm going to show you how to diagnose and repair your Echo backpack leaf blower with an acceleration problem. Now the model of the blower today is a PB265L. It's a small backpack blower, mostly for the homeowner. So I'm going to start it up just to show you what the symptoms are. So I'll start it up again. As you can see, it'll run for a while, then just cut out quickly. It's really hard to start though too. So that's all that's happening with it. It will only run on the choke and then it'll rev up and then quit all of a sudden. Now because it's in like new condition, what I suspect is that there could be water in the fuel. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove the fuel, put it in a clear container so I can see exactly what's in the fuel. So just looking at the fuel like that, it doesn't look too bad, but if you look under the container, you can see a lot of dirt in the fuel. And when I look at the fuel up close here in person, it looks like there's some kind of sludge inside the fuel. So what I suspect that is some kind of moisture or water in the fuel. Usually if you see water that's heavy in there, it's going to separate from the fuel and you're going to see bubbles of water. Now here's a better view outside of the fuel in the container. You can see water droplets in the bottom of the container. So that's definitely the problem. So when this happens, what you should do is remove the fuel like I just did, let it dry in the sun or in your garage for quite a while, like maybe a day or two. And the next thing you need to do is to remove the carburetor, take it all apart, and leave it open so that it can dry. I'm going to show you how to do that. I want to start by removing the air filter cover. Remove the air filter. Next you need to remove the two Allen bolts over here. Next, hold the carburetor and pull the air filter bracket out with the two bolts. And just remember there's a small gasket that came off of here. Now we need to remove the throttle cable from the carburetor, so grab the throttle lever here, move it like that, push the throttle cable in like this, and then slide it over the groove on the mechanism there. Then you can let go. And now slide the cable out of the bracket here. Now what you've got left to remove are the two fuel lines over here. And because one is black, I'm going to make a small mark here with a black marker so that I remember exactly where the black fuel line went when I put it back together. So I'll just mark it like this. Now grab a flat screwdriver, a dull one if you have one, and just basically lift up the line carefully. Now that I've got the carburetor off the machine, I'm going to take it apart and show you how to do that. To do this, all you're going to need is a Phillips screwdriver. Now let's start by removing the 4 screws here. And now before you remove this, make sure you remember that when you put this bracket back on that it goes in this position here. A bit of fuel is going to come out, that's perfectly normal. Now once that's off, you're going to need to remove the small Phillips screw inside the carburetor here. Now pull up on this part, it's going to come off. Now flip your carb over and remove the 2 screws at the bottom. Now you can pop this cover like this. And this is the side with the metering diaphragm. So now remove this small Phillips screw here, or just loosen it. And what that's going to do is help you to remove the needle and the lever here. And be careful you do not lose the small spring in there. Now grab your carb and remove the 3 screws on the top here. Now the whole top cover is going to come off, just like that. Now you can put all your carb parts in a secure container over here. So now when you look at the diaphragms, you can see a bit of dirt on there, but what I'm more worried about is moisture or water in the carb, and it's kind of hard to see at this point. So like I said, what I need to do now is to leave it open to dry up. And here's the metering diaphragm, and that's in perfect condition. It's not hard or anything like that, so I'm going to reuse that. Now here's the inside of the carb. What's really important is that this little screen here isn't blocked. Looks pretty clean, and there doesn't seem to be any more water in there. I've removed all these parts here, including the needle, from the container holding the carburetor parts, and the reason for that is because I don't want to get carb cleaner on them. I'm going to spray these parts only with carb cleaner. What that's going to do is help the moisture evaporate from the carburetor parts. What I'm going to do at this point is grab a wire like this that's bent like that. I'm going to reach into the fuel tank and retrieve the fuel line and the filter. The only fuel line you want to get out at this point is the one with the fuel filter at the end. You don't need to worry about the other line here, the yellow one, because it's for the primer, and it only goes in the fuel tank about 1 inch to 2 inches inside. At this point, I'm going to leave the machine like this with the filter out for approximately a day. If it's sunny outside, you can put it out in the sun. This will accelerate the drying time on your carburetor parts and the fuel tank. You want to make sure that when you put it back together, everything is super dry. And make sure you don't lose any of your parts. Make sure they're all contained in a container like that. And do not spray the diaphragms and the needle with carb cleaner. It's always best to be safe and not do that. So I've had all the parts drying for about 2 days. I couldn't work on it yesterday, so I got an extra day to dry in the sun. And here are all my carb parts over here. They're nice and dry. And so is the inside of the fuel tank. It's super dry, and that's what you want because you don't want any water droplets left in there at all. And I even made sure that the fuel filter here that goes in the fuel tank was nice and dry. First thing I'm going to reinstall is that filter. And you want to make sure it's pushed in all the way like that, and don't forget to put the little clip here over it. Now I'll just slide it back in the tank like that, and put the gas cap back on. Now I'm going to put the carburetor back together. I'm going to grab the top part here, line it up like this, and this part this way, and it's going to go right in there. And I'll tighten up the 3 screws that go on top. You may want to move the throttle lever to tighten up the last screw. Now the next thing you want to do is grab the small spring, stick it in the groove here. You want to make sure it's sitting upright like that when you put in the needle and the lever. Now with the carb upright and the spring upright, and with this in your other hand, just simply insert it in there. You may want to move that pin to go under the screw, just like that, and now push down. Now tighten up this screw here, but not too tight. And you want to make sure it moves freely like that. There's no need to readjust anything because all we did is took the carburetor apart to let it dry, so I'm just putting back everything the way it was. Now you can reinstall your metering diaphragm, line up the holes like that, install the cover, and now install the 2 screws. Now what you want to do is grab the plastic part, put the gasket over here, put the diaphragm there. Now grab the carburetor on this side and just insert the parts together. They're going to line up in some notches and holes, so you cannot put it on wrong. Over here you're going to need to install this screw. Now grab this plate, insert the primer bulb in like this, and now slide it over the carburetor in this position here. And now reinstall the 4 screws that hold that on there. And tighten up the screws evenly, so just crisscross. By tightening on the screws evenly like that, it's going to make sure that we do not get any air or fuel leaks. Now that the carburetor is back together, I'm ready to reinstall it. I'm just going to start by rehooking up the fuel lines, and I made a small black mark here that was to indicate that it was the black fuel line that connected on that connector. And the other fuel line will go right here. Now what you're going to need is this whole cover assembly with the bolts put in and the gasket over here. Now line up the carburetor on the machine in this position. And now insert the bolts in the carburetor like this. They're going to come out on the other side like that. Don't forget to put this gasket on there. Now you want to bolt in the 2 bolts inside the carburetor adapter over here. Now tighten up the 2 bolts and make sure you tighten them up evenly. Now at this point we're going to reinstall the throttle cable. Grab the end of it, run it through the small pipe here. And you're going to see it coming out of here. Now what you need to do is turn the whole lever like this. You want this to be turned with the bigger side here, so that'll fit right in. So grab the cable. Now you can turn this a bit, push the cable in there. Now I'll try the throttle control to make sure it works good. And if it moves like this, then it's on properly. So now what I'm going to do is fuel it up, spray a bit of starting fluid inside the carburetor so the fuel gets up to it quicker, and then hopefully it's going to work good. Now I'm going to prime it about 5-6 times. And I'm going to spray a bit of flammable penetrating oil inside the carb so that I don't have to pull it as much to get it going. So as you saw there, the machine started, ran, and then stopped. I still have the same symptoms. So I have to replace the carburetor. Unfortunately, taking the carburetor apart, cleaning it, and putting it back on didn't work. Also, I had previously tried a brand new carburetor kit in that carb, and it did not work as well, so I just decided to put a brand new carburetor. I had filmed this video last year, and I lost some of the footage of me getting the carburetor and putting it in. So the next clip you're going to see is the machine with a brand new carburetor. So now that I have the carburetor back on, I'm going to start it up and hope that it runs good. Well, that's good that it works. I'm very happy with that. Now don't forget to put back the air filter and the cover back on. So that wasn't so hard to do. I'm sure if you watch this video carefully that you're going to be able to do this yourself. Sometimes though, if your blower is put away and there's water in the fuel, it could damage the carburetor permanently. So this goes to show that no matter what you do to a carburetor after it's been sitting with water in it all winter, that it may not work properly after that, and that the only solution is to replace it. Thanks again for watching. Make sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.